And knowing that we still have sundown towns that exist in the state of Virginia.
Sundown?
Sundown.
Sundown means?
Sundown means that when the sun goes down, Black people do not enter the town because they're allowed to do whatever they please. And
but Virginia is so nice.
Could often feel like
but
a
Virginia is
town.
so beautiful, though.
And so, how far have you gone in Southwest Virginia?
I try not to. I try not to get off the major roads.
Why do you try not to?
I keep a full tank of gas.
And why do you, in your mind, tell yourself that when you're going through the more rural parts of Virginia, you need to keep a full tank of gas, even though it's such a nice state?
I feel like I want to maintain my delusion.
Uh-huh.
And if that's what they do, keep it over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just stay out your way. I stay out the hood's way. I was like, okay, you got your thing. I'll stay out your way. Let me just try to find my place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Virginia is beautiful, but at the same time, it's also like when you're driving through it, it feels like, oh, I think this is like the opening act to 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah. Like, Virginia's that state that's like, oh, antebellum won't fake. That's real. And like, as a person who, again, likes to travel, and I would often like drive to Alabama to see my best friend, or drive to Atlanta, or drive to New Jersey to see my dad. I think for my mom, who we talked about, she realized that in some ways me going abroad was a lot safer than me traveling in the US. Because abroad, I have the protection of being an American citizen, period. Right? I travel with a blue passport. Whereas in the United States, baby, most of the people who are there are American citizens. Yeah. And you happen to be a Black one. So... in the rural South.
Like a lower status.
Exactly. You lose that privilege because when everybody around you is the same, what then separates you?
That's so interesting. Like, when I think about it, like, as a movie, it's like this idea, it's like you just see people and, all right, this idea doesn't connect very well. But what I'm saying is some people, they see us and they have no idea to tell which one of us are like the good or the bad or the.
But they also,
like, is that really?
They refuse to look at themselves like that, right? Like, we see white people, and
I don't know. All I know is Full House.
Right, but you know more
Everything
than Full House.
ends
Like,
very well.
Think about
at the end of Full House.
If you thought of a cult leader.
Okay.
Think about if you think of a serial killer, even in today's terms. Think about
so you think it's like
a mass shooter.
You think it's like a psychosis kind of thing going on.
100%. I think media, especially TV media in the 90s, and this may also be because I watched part of a Hulu documentary about the dark days of the 90s. But it had so much power in dictating what we assumed was norm and what we assumed was a regular occurrence in society. And then being in Europe and being around people who consumed American television in the 90s and in the early 2000s, and hearing what they assume the US to be like because of what they consumed. It's like, it's a very limited sphere.
It's like funny when you're
what
like,
you're consuming.
Being a Black man in Europe, I remember this feeling. It felt like a European just like ran to me and like,
Mr. Huxtable,
is it really that bad?
Right.
Is it really that bad? And it feels like, it's like, oh, when you're only consuming it from this end through the media images, it feels like, oh, it feels like every day feels like an action movie. Yeah. And that's also something that I came to understand about America, is that like America is intense. America is an intense place. And even if nothing is actually happening to you and in your neighborhood, you're always feeling and afraid that it's about to happen. And what America really needs is something a Canadian told me. It's like boring. Americans need more boring. Like, you wake up, the day starts like this, the day ends like this. The day starts like this, the day ends like this. You want boring, like where you turn on the 11 o'clock news and you hear, okay, Farmer John's pigs got out and he lost like 20 of them. That's the end of the story. And that's like the number one story. Not like a high-speed car chase that ended in like 76 bodies. Elementary school getting burned down. And a circus mad clown like running around town who hasn't been caught yet. It's like, that's how like American news feels. It just feels like.
But they also do it on purpose. Like, we have to realize that it's very intentional. I saw a documentary again on like when the news moved to 24-hour news coverage. And this idea that they had to find things to fill the time. And so they created programming that would then intrigue their audience regardless of what time they turned their TV on. CNN had a breaking story. And so imagine that at any point of the day, there was something happening in the country that was breaking. Even if you did live a normal wake up, go to work, come home lifestyle, you could tune in and see something that was sensationalized.
This is true.
And the world was consuming it, not just you in your home and your local neighborhood.
This is true. But what I will add to that is that what I've observed about like American society is that it's very